Good evening. Tonight we're going to talk about two very important issues, our kids and our schools. We want to share with you some of the changes that have occurred over the last few years, including standards, Common Core, and college and career ready, 21st century learning, privacy concerns, and how the data obtained through testing and surveys drive each child into a specific career path for the workforce. This is a cradle-to-career system. We'll explain the language and the acronyms of today's education and what it means. However, just as important, we want you to understand that your voice as a parent, a teacher, and a school board member is very, very important. We believe the Common Core greatly reduces parental and local control. My name is Linda Bell, and I am here tonight on behalf of Minnesotans Against Common Core, a grassroots nonpartisan group. We have roughly 2,500 members across the state and are a growing organization throughout the state. I'm a 25-year veteran of the public school system, teaching in both Florida and Minnesota. Twice I was employed by the Florida Department of Education to write standards and curriculum at the state level. So I know a little bit about some of this. I actually worked for Robbinsdale Schools and enjoyed teaching the kids and partnering with the parents in this district. I am married and have 2 children. I am joined tonight by Ron Stoffel. Ron is a 30-year resident of Robbinsdale Area Schools District, a graduate of Robbinsdale High School and the University of Minnesota. He has worked in the corporate, tax accounting, and consulting field for 33 years. He is currently a member of the Robbinsdale Area Schools Systems Accountability Committee and past member of the Strategic Planning and Divestiture Committees. Ron is a current candidate for the RAS Board that will be elected on November 4th, 2014. Minnesotans Against Common Core, or MACC, is a nonpartisan group of parents and citizens who are very concerned about this transformational reform to our schools. Our mission is to inform and educate and call for a repeal of the Common Core state standards, No Child Left Behind waiver, Race to the Top, or any other top-down takeover of our schools' local control. We are all volunteers and fund the costs out of our own pockets. Our working outline for tonight is what is Common Core, ramifications for our children and schools, and reclaiming our voice. Feel free to take notes. We have done extensive research over the last year, but please do your own research. Decide for yourselves if this is the best, proper direction for Minnesota and the nation. We are happy to take questions at the end of the presentation, so please hold them until that time. Common Core is more than just standards. It's a complete package deal. It's standards, curriculum, testing, privacy issues, data mining and tracking, and workforce management. I would also add the teacher and principal evaluations that are tied to the Common Core implementation that could be up on this graphic. Common Core is an abbreviated term used to refer to the Common Core State Standards Initiative, a set of national standards for English and mathematics, although all subjects are being revised. Written by the NGA, the National Governors Association, the CCSSO, the Chief Council of State School Officers, backed and funded by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, adopted sight unseen by 46 states in exchange for Race to the Top money or a waiver from No Child Left Behind. To standardize education is to take a cookie-cutter approach. All kids are not the same. Under the cookie-cutter approach, there will be little room or desire for excellence, innovation, or critical thinking. Help for those with special needs will be greatly reduced. So, some facts for you. Where is Minnesota on the timeline? How much more time do we have left? According to both the CCSSO and the NGA, the Common Core standards are to be fully implemented by this year, this school year, 2014-2015. We have been on a 3-year implementation schedule, having begun the 2012-2013 year. Minnesota was one of the first states to implement the Common Core along with 5 other states. Minnesota, as you can see, is up there in the purple, and there's our implementation. The only state that went ahead of us was Kentucky, 1 year earlier, they piloted Common Core. Additionally, it's stated within the Minnesota No Child Left Behind waiver that all subjects must be aligned to Common Core by 2014-2015. There were 4 states nationally that never adopted Common Core. Minnesota adopted halfway at the state, and you all know this. For these 5 states that did not adopt the core at the state level, we see the same trend. Even though CCSS was not adopted at the state level, the school districts are adopting at the local level regardless. Yes, that's right. Common Core is infiltrating from inside the state. What is the end game of the Common Core? Something called the workforce. So let's begin with the end. I know when I'm reading a really good book, I want to sometimes look at the back and find out how it ends. How does it end? Does it end well? Well, tonight we're going to peek at the end of the book, and this story's ending depends completely upon us. Workforce tracking is a term your own school district may use, and it is called, in Minnesota, the world's best workforce. The Workforce Initiative, driven by businesses and government, is a system of labor market boards, curriculum, and job matching. It is school to factory. As a parent, you probably thought it was your responsibility to help your child and to guide them into a profession of their choosing. Your child may want to also choose their own profession. But as businesses are allowed to continue taking over our schools, we see a disturbing trend, and that is some in the business community may be primarily self-serving, viewing our children as human capital, mere investments, and not looking out for their best interests. As parents, we are the ones who are looking out for our kids' best interests. So let's learn how the workforce system is already in place. Our U.S. Secretary of Education, Arne Duncan, during a speech just 3 weeks ago stated, "We should be able to look every second grader in the eye and say, you're on track. You're going to be able to go to a good college or not." Teachers will determine which student is qualified to interview for which apprenticeship. This is not far off. That's from the United States Chamber of Commerce. The Workforce Initiative will be fully implemented in winter 2014. Again, from the U.S. Chamber. Do you think your child's future should be decided when they're in 2nd grade? When we discuss the workforce, we have to address one of the major drivers of this reform, and that is the Chamber of Commerce. These quotes describe the level of involvement from our national and state chambers of commerce in bringing businesses into our schools. Here are some quotes. In 2014, we, the Chamber, want to ensure that the Common Core state standards are fully executed and implemented. That's Tom Donahue, President of the U.S. Chamber. From a political article in March 2014, the strategy of the U.S. Chamber of Commerce is it gives conservatives reasons to support the Common Core and make clear that they will reap dividends if they do. And lastly, from May 2014, Jean Arnold, in a quote in Politico, "For both conservatives and liberals, regarding the Common Core, the big stick the business people are using is the threat that campaign contributions could slow down." So there's a few things. What do local chambers say? Well, we have a few articles out there. This article was shared the mission of the Chamber, which is to match up the American education system with the European educational system of work ready. We need to change to meet the job market demands in Wisconsin. This is a Wisconsin article. Appleton, to be clear. And discourage our children from seeking a college degree. Only 27% of jobs in Wisconsin require a college education. Attendees asked about the role of parents. They were told, quote, "We did not include the parents." Attendees persisted with the questions about the role of parents and received this answer, quote, "We are not telling the parents. Their children will bring them along." We are going to completely restructure the educational system. When the leader stated that the time is not far off, he was exactly correct. And as I told you just a minute ago, the workforce initiative, they want it to be fully implemented by this winter 2014. Another major driver of the European-style workforce actually comes in the reform that came before Common Core, and that's No Child Left Behind and its collection of testing and data. How many of you know how many of you know something about No Child Left Behind? Yes, yes, good for you. Testing and data collection became the hallmark of No Child Left Behind during the George W. Bush years. Testing for adequate yearly progress began in 2005, but their objectives began in 2002. And so here you see some objectives. Each state, each school district was allowed to set up their own benchmarks, to set up their own plans. And so here we see some of the requirements. It was a plan to have all school children tested at, and they would have to meet 100% proficiency, that level by 2012-2013. Every child would have to test 100%. I don't know if everyone in here, I don't know that I could test 100%, much less put that on a third or fourth grader. States came up with plans promising 40% proficiency in English language arts in 2002 and 2003. Then they would jump it up a little bit higher each year, a little bit higher, trying to get to, back to this, trying to get to the 100% measure. Interestingly enough, some districts actually went kind of horizontal for a while and then did a straight shoot up in the last few years, hoping against hope that No Child Left Behind would be knocked down. This is very average here for what districts might do. By 2010, 38% of schools were failing to make adequate yearly progress, up from 29% in 2006. In 2011, over 50% of all schools were seeing failure rates. How could this be? Are this many schools really total failures? Could all students really reach 100% proficiency? Well, clearly, in the real world, the answer is no. This goal was unattainable. The achievement gap is the comparison of students based on socioeconomics and other factors. So how much your parents make and various things like that. Prior to the No Child Left Behind, I just want to make sure you know that test scores were averaged within the school. It was No Child Left Behind where the test data began to be looked at in a different way. So this means that of your gifted children that scored really high or took tests really well, you would average their scores with the kids in the middle, and you would average them with your special needs or your severely disabled students. And so you would have an average for the whole school. And so that tended to show well, because there were many students that were doing just fine. How do we go from relatively successful schools to failing schools under the No Child Left Behind? It's a long word called disaggregation. Under what is termed disaggregation, a scheme central to No Child Left Behind, kids are divided into subgroups, every one of which must show 95% test participation and progress. Here are the Minnesota subgroups. All students, American Indian, Alaskan Native, Asian Pacific Islander, Hispanic, Black, White, limited English proficient, special education, free reduced price meals. It's true that in the past, schools could hide their poor performance of, say, special ed students by averaging it in with that of excellent students. But pulling out the subgroups created what is called transparency. And we were able to see every subgroup and how they were doing. And if one subgroup, instead of the whole school averaging all those test scores together, if just one subgroup, your special ed or your severely disabled, if they didn't meet 100%, your school was a failure. In designing No Child Left Behind, we basically developed a system that would never succeed. Closing the achievement gap is important. And in Minnesota, we do have children that are in poverty They are the ones that need the most help. But we also have children, and in Minnesota we have some of the highest scores on tests. I don't know if you realize that. Our math scores have been the highest in the nation recently. And so we do have a broad achievement gap because so many kids are smart and testing well in Minnesota, and that's our problem with the achievement gap.